Howdy, welcome back to Dion Talk. This video is going to be about Schrodinger's assets and liabilities. And I want to take a second to thank the Big Bang Theory for making this kind of a household concept. In 1997, Robert Kiyosaki kind of punched the finance world in the face because for decades, most of us had heard, your house is the largest asset most of us will ever purchase. And in his book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki said, your house is not an asset. And if this is your first time to my channel, my goal is to teach the average person that you can reach financial independence and make work optional in 10 years or less, even if you're not starting from the best position. Which I wasn't, and I did, and you will. And at the end of this video, I have a message from my inner Marine to anybody who sticks around to the end. To understand why Robert said your house is not an asset, and why a lot of people argue with him, we need to understand the definition that Robert is using for assets and liabilities. I even have a friend who I consider to be pretty intelligent who argues with me anytime I say, your house is not an asset. The definition Robert goes by is an asset puts money in your pocket and a liability takes money out of your pocket. Whether you look at it as an asset or a liability, I think people should own a home. There was a study done in 2020 that showed the average net worth in the United States was $121,000. The average net worth of a homeowner was $255,000, and the average net worth of a renter was $6,300. This kind of shows that home ownership can have a significant impact on our finances. Robert says if you buy a house to live in and you are paying while you're living there, that it is not an asset. His detractors say, yes, but one day I could sell the house, and because of appreciation, I could realize a gain. I could make money off of this house. And Robert says, yes, but while you're living there, it is costing you money. When you sell it, it could be considered an asset. But right now, while you're living in it, since it's taking money out of your pocket, the house that you live in is a liability. And to this, Robert's naysayers say, I could be renting out the rooms in the house and making more money off of that rent than it's costing me to live there. So while I'm living there, this house could be putting money in my pocket. And to this, Robert said, but are you? So what I realized using this definition of asset and liability, where assets put money in your pocket and liabilities take money out of your pocket, anything we own is like Schrodinger's cat. Inside the box, before we open it, it is both alive and dead, and until we open the box to see the state of the cat, it exists in both. When we look at something that people own, until we open the box and look at the numbers, it is possible for it to be an asset, and it is possible for it to be a liability. And until we take a deeper look, it's both. If we look at someone's house, we have to figure out, is it a primary residence where they live and they pay to live there? Or is it a place where they live and they rent out the other rooms, where it produces money? Cash flow tells the story. We can even take this a step further. If somebody tells us, I own a rental property, that doesn't tell us that they have an asset. Just like the house, if a rental property produces cash flow and it makes more money than it costs, it's an asset. If you lose money every month because you have negative cash flow, then it's a liability. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time would call this an alligator. When it comes to running the numbers on cash flow, I hear people do it a couple different ways. The first one, I think, kind of has a mistake in it. People will say the cash flow is the difference between my rental income and my mortgage. An example is if somebody is collecting $1,500 a month in rent and they're paying a $1,000 mortgage, looking at it this way, they would say they're making $500 a month. The way I look at it is if you have $1,500 a month coming in and $1,000 a month going out for your mortgage, your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, we need to also be setting aside money for future expenses like CapEx, maintenance, vacancy, those expenses that are going to come up. You may also want to set aside for property management. I self-manage and I don't set aside money for property management, but in the future, I might want to have a property manager. I kind of think that rents will go up, mortgages will stay the same, so that money that I need to pay property management will be there, which is tracking to be true. When I buy a property, my goal is to have at least a 10% cash-on-cash return. And over the years, with the rents going up and the mortgages not really changing very much, my overall cash-on-cash return is now around 16%. And this way of looking at assets and liabilities from the Schrodinger standpoint doesn't just apply to real estate. The most common asset that's talked about is stocks. But until we open the box and look at the numbers, even a stock exists in both states. An example would be selling Tesla stock at $700 a share. What if we paid $900 a share yesterday? Remember, cash flow tells the story. So under this definition, dividend stocks would be an asset. But that doesn't mean that they're a good investment. Sometimes the rate of return isn't very good. And when you own a stock and consider it an asset, it's not really an asset until you sell it to put money in your pocket, and then you no longer have it. I get why Robert Kiyosaki said, "Your house is not an asset," and left it kind of controversial because that's how you sell books. And someday I'm going to write the book, The Cheat Code to Wealth, A Lazy Person's Guide to Financial Freedom. But not today. So when we look at an asset, we need to take a look at the numbers. My twist on what Robert is saying is we need to figure out if it is a cash-producing asset, a cash-holding asset, or a cash-losing liability. If we start looking at investments this way, I think we'll have a few less arguments and a little more clarity when it comes to talking about our investments. I want to wrap up with, it is okay to have liabilities. The goal should be to have an asset pay for the liability. If we have to sell our life 1 hour at a time to cover the cost of a liability, then we're still trapped in the rat race. Until we get to the point where the cash flow from our investments is greater than the cost of our liabilities, we aren't free. You are going to be alive in 5 years? Do what it takes now to be free then. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.